Hello. Thank you so much for tuning in. Welcome back. For those of you who watched my introduction video about 2 weeks ago, thanks so much for coming along this journey with me, this journey to freedom, as we conquer depression and anxiety. As you all can see, I am outside. I'm on my campus. And so I just decided, I'd probably switch things up a bit. Depending on the weather. Didn't want you to necessarily always see that white background in my room, because honestly, things happen everywhere. Anxiety attacks happen everywhere. You can feel depressed no matter where you are. And so I have my little notes because I want to make sure that I'm not just babbling, and that you guys are really getting like the meat and potatoes of this journey. And so today's episode or video will be based on my need for control, and basically how my need for control usually means I don't control anything. And so I kind of just start off with the background of it all. So with me, my need for control ends up turning into an obsession of sorts. And I literally try to control every single facet of my life. Like anything that you can think that I would want to control, I try to control those things. So one of those things is my relationships. I told my boyfriend a few weeks ago that I wish I knew his every thought. Like, I wish I knew what he was thinking before he was thinking it. Sometimes, I want to know what's on your mind at all times. And because of that, by me knowing what it is that you're thinking, I can then respond accordingly. So for me, it has nothing to do with like wanting to be psychic or wanting to manipulate others. It has nothing to do with others, really. I just want to be able to control myself. Like, I want to know that so for example, say you're thinking, I hate this girl. I hate when she does that. But if I know that before you say it or before you even respond in a way that makes me feel that way, I can already adjust because I know that this is what you're thinking. But then when you think about that, it's like that's extremely problematic for a number of reasons. One, because you can end up learning something, or someone can have a thought that can be extremely hurtful. And they could have that thought and it can be just a passing thought, like not something that they dwell on, not something that they feel often. But in that moment they could have a thought and it can be really detrimental to you all's relationship. And then so it's this notion of being so concerned with others and how they feel, that a lot of times in wanting to control others and their emotions, or not even their emotions, but wanting to control how I respond to them, I often sell myself short. And either I stifle my own emotions, or I blurt out, or I say too much. So a lot of times I've had in my life, I'll treat things where it's like, I'm going to say it before you say it, because I want to control the situation. If I say it and then now it's already out there, it's already public knowledge, you can't use that against me. And so that's kind of how I've always gone about things. My family, we talk a lot on my father's side, and so I've always been accustomed to sharing a lot of information. However, that turned into, not only was I sharing a lot of information, I was sharing information that wasn't even important. But because of my anxiety, it's like I have these thoughts in my mind and I feel like everyone else is looking at me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and just acknowledge the elephant in the room that I've placed in the room, because it's not really there. And we gonna move on. So now once I've already acknowledged it, now you can't say nothing about it, so that's like a defense mechanism, which we all have them, but it's learning when and when and where they should be used. And so another thing that I like to control, which most of us do, and it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's my finances. But for me, I make lists of everything that I have to pay for, all of my bills, all my wants or whatever. And so I'll make these lists, but I go over the list over and over and over again. Like, I can make a list today, and I kid you not, I'll look over that list probably 5 times minimum in a day. And then I'll also, not only will I look over that list, I'll start thinking about the list. So I'll go to bed and I already know what needs to be done. The point of making the list is to get it down on paper. Now you see it, you've written it down, and so I'll do that. But then at night, I'll still be thinking about it. Like, the list will keep going over and over and over and over in my head. Again, it turns into an obsession, because at this point, that's all you're thinking about. That's all I'm thinking about. And then, God forbid, it's something that I can't afford, and so now I'm stressing and I'm trying to figure out like a get rich quick scheme, or, I start beating myself up and feeling like I should have like gotten a hustle years ago, or I should have done this, I should have done that, so that I wouldn't be in this situation. And yes, preparation is key. You do want to prepare for certain situations, but certain things are out of your control, which we'll touch on, a bit later. And then being uncomfortable and feeling like, dang, I should have prepared. Now I feel like a failure, which feeds my depression. It feeds another reason to be depressed. And then, so my control also goes into like my day-to-day life, like just day-to-day. When things don't go my way, it's over. Like when I say I plan out everything, before my boyfriend and I even got together, I had planned out my wedding. Okay, like the colors, my dress, what I wanted to look like, what I wanted him to look like as far as his suit, even like a guest list. I had created a guest list, and hell, I mean, we wasn't together, you know what I'm saying? So I couldn't even like decide who was going to be on his side, or just thinking about all those different things. And so I told him, like, within the first year that we got together, it probably was like the first month, because I mean, he and I had been friends for so long, but I told him, and he absolutely hated the colors. When I say, guys, I was completely distraught, because in my mind, this was the way that it was supposed to go. No one was going to go against that, because this is me. This is what I want, and that's what's important. And so making up these things and planning so far ahead is not good, because then I get so attached to those things and so attached to these ideas that I've created. It gets to a point where even if it's like a date night, or I'm going out with my girlfriends, or anything that I decide that I'm doing that day, I even consider all potential interactions, like conversations, someone holding the door for me, how I will respond if they do or they don't. Like, again, obsession. Everything is planned out, everything has its place, and then if in the event that it does not go that way, it drives me insane. Like, if my boyfriend says that we're going to go out on a date at 10, or he wants me to be ready at 10, if he then decides, you know what, make that 10:15 or make that 9:30, I'm stressed, because I didn't plan for that. That's not what I had in mind, and now you're changing it on the fly, and that's stressful for me. And then another piece of that is just, me and God. It's like, dang, if your will does not line up with what I have in my mind, now you don't love me. Now I can't trust you, because I asked you for this specific thing and you're not coming through. And the Bible says that, God will give us the desires of our heart. So it's like, if this is my desire, why can't you just give it to me? But again, we can see how that's also problematic. A lot of times our desires aren't for us, and God is always for us. So kind of have to weigh that out. And so going back to how this is problematic, control turns into obsession. Anytime you look to control something so much, you're going to become obsessed with it. That obsession equals heightened anxiety, because now you're thinking about this thing over and over and over again. That heightened anxiety means you're going to shut down eventually, and you're just going to say forget it, because now you're overwhelmed. Now you don't want to think about it anymore, and then that turns into worthlessness, or you feeling like, dang, I can't never finish nothing, dang, I can't never do nothing, and when I say, you or all these things, these are things that I deal with, and it turns into that, and then worthlessness then turns into depression all over again. Like, it makes you even more depressed, and so the cycle continues, and you go back into that same place. Like, it's like a repeated cycle. So for me, it's like, what some of the things that I've implemented is journaling to clear my thoughts. I find that writing helps me really clear my mind versus speaking aloud or trying to make a list in my phone. Physically writing things down helps me to kind of alleviate some of the stresses that I have. I've also implemented yoga because that makes me focus more on self than the outside world. Like, you have to be completely in tune with your own body, your own breathing, and not think about external factors, because yoga, as much as people would think like it's stretching, it's super hard, especially when you get into some of the different poses. And then I've implemented other self-care practices like speaking over my day, setting intentions, and making sure that at least one day out of the week I'm focusing solely on self, to the point where I'll say, like, I don't want to be consumed with this person today. I don't want to be consumed with this activity today. Like, no matter what it is, if I feel like it's consuming me, I'll speak and say that I no longer want to be a part of that today, tomorrow, but in this moment I just want to be concerned with self. And in the future, I decided that, I would write down my lists more often than put them in my phone, because it just makes you so detached from things with, technology, but that's neither here nor there. And so I guess, in closing, it's like, where do we go from here? First, my spiritual relationship has to become stronger, because a lot of it has to do with trusting myself, and trusting that God has put place in me enough to do what it is that I need to do, and to be successful. And then the other part is trusting that God always has me, which brings me to the scripture that I wanted to share with you guys is Philippians chapter 1 verses 6. It's being confident of this very thing, that he who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. He's already begun that work, and he has to complete it. It's in his word. It's already done. So know that you're going to have everything that you need to get to where it is that you want to go. So you don't have to control everything. Last two, just know that you have no control over externalities. The only thing that you can do is control, or not even control. The only thing that you can do is focus on your response to what happens. Once you do that, you're okay. But if something should happen, you can't control that it happened. You can't stop it from happening. All you can do is change your response to that thing. And then lastly, preparation is important, as it does alleviate stressors. And of course, you don't want to necessarily put things off, because that causes anxiety. But expect change. Be open to change. Don't always feel like you have to control, or that you even can control every situation, or that everything is going to go the way that you decide that it's going to go, because you're going to be let down. I'm going to be let down. So that's kind of how my thing with control. I might do a second part to this. If you have any questions or anything, I'll start leaving an email response or an email link at the bottom. I'll post it at a later date once I decide which email I'm going to use. But again, thank you so much for coming along this journey with me. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you receive everything that God would have you receive. And I'm really thankful for this. I'm really thankful for this constant push that God has given me to do this. because not only do I want to get over depression and anxiety, but I want you to do it too. Okay? Love you guys.